For the next presenter, the one word she uses to describe herself is retro. On top of that, Claudia's guilty pleasure is buying vinyls when she has no money in her bank account.
She says it's like a game. Can she afford it, or will her card decline?
When I was small, people used to ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, as people do to all children. And I responded in a way that most children would, that I wanted to grow up to be a florist ballerina. But when I was alone, after what seemed like hours of pestering, I would tell myself that when I grew up, I would be light. Small, skinny, light. As all children do, I ended up watching a lot of television with my parents. And my parents are relatively young, so they belong to the same generation as I do. I remember watching a lot of 90s sitcoms, mostly Friends. It was something that made me feel good because of the characters like Fat Monica. She made me feel like there was people out there that were like me. But then it hit me that I could never be happy unless I became thinner, much like Monica. Fattertainment is something that's been with me for my whole life, in both television and movies. I spent my childhood and adolescence watching women like me go from fat and unhappy to skinny and content. It hit me that I would never, at the end of each program, that I would never be happy unless I was skinny and that my weight was the butt of someone else's joke. A study has been done that says 80% of girls have been on a diet by the age of 10. My elementary school friends always told me that I was the fat friend, therefore making me one of those 80%. It always frustrated me because I was exactly the same as they were. A common misconception from my childhood is that big bones aren't a real thing. So at age 10, I started a dysmorphic view into my body and not wanting to be myself. I hated looking at myself for the longest time, and I just wanted to grow up to be small. I thought that middle school would be a fresh start, somewhere for me to begin again and to have people treat me like a person, not the outcast fat kid. I was very, very wrong. I hadn't experienced bullying until the 7th grade, and the constant moving in the hallway and kids making fun of the clothes I wore made me want to die. I was barely a teenager, and I already wanted to die. I was diagnosed with STD and SAD in the 9th grade, and I saw myself become some kind of failure because there's such a stigma around mental health in people my age. Adults wouldn't believe me that I was sick because I was just a kid and I was going through puberty. I didn't understand what being depressed had to do with going through puberty. I quickly realized that I'd have to change myself for the comfort of others, living my life like I was okay with changing. It's shown in a diary entry from 2015 saying I'm following a lot of pro-anorexia pages on Instagram, and I want to be thin and beautiful because they're thin and beautiful. I wanted to change my body because people were uncomfortable with who I was. When I started high school, my goal to be thin and beautiful became stronger, and I felt like I could see it happening if I just tried a few more things. I exercised regularly, like I always had, but nothing was changing, and I wanted to have some kind of control over things in my life. I started restricting what I ate in the 10th grade, becoming vegetarian just to see what I could stop myself from doing. In grade 11, I started to eat 1 to 2 meals per day, then changing to only eating on certain nights. Being hungry felt like I was finally doing something right, like I was accomplishing something. I was diagnosed with disordered eating in the 11th grade, not completely disordered because I was still eating dinner with my family on most evenings. The diagnosis made me feel like I was making 4-year-old me proud. I wanted her to be proud. It was so important to me that she was happy of who I was becoming. Her little goal to be happy and light and skinny was always sitting at the back of my head. Her little voice was telling me that it was one meal, that I really didn't need it, and that I could do it if I really tried. She wasn't me. I identified her as a personal demon. It spiraled into the habit where I would refuse anything that wasn't water-based, such as water and watermelon. I would tell everyone that I was eating properly, and they believed me because I would eat in my bedroom. I would chew my food and spit it into the garbage after. To avoid being caught by my family, I would tie the bag and take it outside. It was the most chores I have ever done to this day. I've been called selfish for being sick because there's many times where I was throwing up or spitting out my food, I was told that there are starving children in third world countries, which there are, and that I was being selfish for doing what I was doing. I was being shamed for being sick, and nobody would actually take the time to help me. During the summer of 2017, in the deepest part of my illness, I didn't look sick, so plenty of people really weren't aware of what was happening to me, but I really did feel like I was dying. I was diagnosed as an anorexic with bulimic tendencies, and everything was draining. Waking up, I wanted to go back to sleep, and all I wanted to do was lay in bed. I felt like I was failing everyone that I loved because I was so angry at what I couldn't have. I couldn't have the perfect body, I couldn't have the perfect life, and I couldn't have more than 500 calories in one day. I was killing myself, and I didn't notice because I didn't look sick enough. A common misconception with my eating disorder says that a person needs to be well below average weight to be classified as ill. We have to look sick to be sick. And I didn't let myself think that I was struggling, and I felt like I was faking it. My illness wasn't valid because I didn't look ill. It sounds cliche, but in the deepest part of my illness, I woke up one morning and I was absolutely done. I was done with everything I had done to everyone around me. So I decided to put my story on Instagram, and it was met with horrific backlash from both family and friends. They said that I was looking for attention. One time my counselor told me that when people get angry, they just don't understand, so they get angry. I took their reactions as not understanding how I could be sick. I remember calling myself fat once, and someone told me that I wasn't fat, that I was beautiful, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't be both. They expected me to be well right away, and they didn't understand that recovery isn't linear. This is my story. It isn't perfect, and it never will be. It's about a little girl living in a grown woman's body, just trying to be who she was meant to be. When I was little, I wanted to be light. I wanted to be skinny, tiny, small. And now that I'm older, I've come to realize that I am the light that people like me need. Thank you.